Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of the Adam Hazara Show. Right here as we're going live right here on YouTube at exactly 6:30 here on a Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. Of course, we got a lot of good stuff to come and talk about today, as always. Of course, we got Lake Braddock and boys hoops beating Robinson in a great comeback win last night, 49-43. We'll get into that. We'll be previewing the Lake Braddock Woodson Patriot District semifinals matchup tomorrow. That's going to be happening at South County over at 7:30. Good matchup over there. And of course, we are going to touch on a little bit of the Lake Braddock girls hoop season ending coming up here on the show tonight. So we'll kind of talk about what will be next for them next season, after they lost to West Springfield in the district playing round on Monday. So before we start, make sure you guys, as always, please leave a like on this live stream. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you don't miss any other shows going forward. Turn on notifications as well to do the same thing. Of course, share this video with a friend. All those, again, would be greatly appreciated. So, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. So, here today on the Adam Hazara Show, we're going to be talking about, first of all, that game versus Robinson last night. Boy, coming into that first half of that game, you're probably thinking, okay, it's probably going to be a close game. Nova Bruins have beaten Robinson twice this year, however. We probably know Robinson going to come in with an edge. They're going to adjust really well. Pretty sure Coach Hess and his squad have done a lot of game prep going to this one. That's what they sure looked like in the first half of that game. And it was at one point where the Bruins were down by a pretty sizable amount. I believe it was 16, 17 points at one point. That was in the second quarter, but Robinson started off the gate well. Coming out of it, they started shooting their threes, which is what they do. They've been one of the best three-point shooting team. And keep in mind, this Bruins team, they've probably been one of the best teams that they faced this year, who have been able to just completely neutralize them in trying to get threes off. But Bruins only held them to like 20% shooting in the previous matchup of this whole season. And from a field, it was also well under 30%. So Bruins overall had just dominated on defense against the Rams this whole season. If they try going inside, get blocked, get rejected, Bruins turnover. Robinson trying to shoot threes, Bruins would close them out well. They would not allow them to get a lot of space creation off. Bruins would do that well. But it's really this one matchup in the first half. Robinson adjusted well. They had taken their mistakes from earlier in the season where, they know the Bruins are dominant and say, hey, we got to step up offensively. This is a one team that's probably held us in check the most offensively. We've only scored, 73 points across two contests coming in this whole season against them. And, we need to be able to make threes. That's our bread and butter. And so they were doing that in the first half. And I think for Bruins, honestly, they were probably kind of caught a bit off guard by this. The Bruins were expecting they could maybe go with the same defensive strategy, whatever that was. But then the Rams started firing it up, lighting up with threes. Noah Barnhart was doing it. Zach Nemitz was doing it. They were getting really good production from Bear. Again, shooting the threes. Finally getting some good perimeter shooting against Lake Braddock this season. And so Lake Braddock really struggled at it. Eventually 1 point, the Bruins, were having trouble keeping up with the pace of Robinson. Once it kind of got out of hand, props to Coach Metris, who we know has had trouble sometime out this season, and, probably not using him when he should. Props to him because he used him when he should have last night. Using the right times, didn't let the game get, too far ahead, where 20-plus points at one point, never got to that point. And Coach Metris was able to rally up his Bruins well and come back. So the Bruins obviously also in the first half. We'll get into what I just said in a few moments, more into that. But, the Rams were finding a lot of holes. And the Bruins themselves, they were not shooting. Terrible shots being made. They were taking these really terrible gambles. I'm not sure why they're doing that. I'm not sure if they're just, they were, feeling desperate, or if they're feeling nervous because they were, because their confidence got thwarted by the fact that Robinson was actually beating them by a good margin. Finally this season, the Rams had something to show against Lake Braddock again. And so, again, but the Bruins weren't getting their shots off. I mean, they were making these, I'll tell you, I was watching from the stands. I wasn't broadcasting last night because, unfortunately, we had technical difficulties with that. Sorry about that, guys. We'll be back in the air next week when the Bruins will be hosting the regional game. It'll be either Monday or Tuesday. Just want to get that out of the way real quick, depending on if I win or lose tomorrow against Woodson. But you have to think that, why were the Bruins taking these weird chances and weird wipes? Again, we talked about, you need to keep it simple in the playoffs. You can't be going for any trickery. If you're going to do trickery, you have to do it right. And this was no trickery here, if you're talking about that. But you really have to execute. And, I know that they were desperate, but again, it was kind of, to the point where it's getting out of hands. They weren't, I think they were taking too many gamble shots, too many gambles. And the gambles looked really terrible. Not going to lie. It looked terrible. I was watching from the stands, and I'm like, what are these layups that they are making? Why are we making these layups where we have no court vision? And, just these bad situations, these, court vision. When I talk about it, it was in these really bad spots. They were just going for these layups that are just nearly impossible to be making in those situations. They weren't running their sets well either. Now, we'll get into after what happened during halftime. So halftime hits. Robinson's up still by double digits at that point. And we go into the third quarter during halftime. Props Coach Metris. Able to rally Bruins up. Great coach as always. That's why he's been there for 25-ish years now. And the Bruins finally, we were starting to see what this Bruins team was really capable of. They started going on a great run offensively. They finally were able to close out against Robinson, preventing them from getting shots. Finally started reading them better. Coach Metris and his guys adjusted really well. Coach Metris has always been known for adjusting really well in those sticky situations like that. Props to him again for that. I think Coach Metris definitely coached one of his better games last night. And definitely I would say that is the win. Yeah, last night I would probably say was the win of the year, especially if it's a great playoff win like that. And so what happened next was the Bruins eventually started hitting their shots. They knew, they were using the time well. They knew they had some time, especially a lot of time left third quarter. They started going, they had better game plan. They started going for, they started opening up lanes for easier layups and just overall easier scoring opportunities. They weren't taking as many gambles. It's not what you should be doing in those situations. I don't know what was going on there. I'll be honest again. But happy thing is, Bruins went out, I believe, in the third quarter. They were down by 14 at one point. Bruins won on, I think it was Bobby Bancroft. Shout out to him on X for tweeting this out. Bruins went on, I believe after that, when they were down by 14, a 22-3 run. And they just started dominating Robinson like they have in the games all season defensively. And then all of a sudden they got scoring output. And, Nate McComb started doing big things. Xavier Maine was doing the big things. Tyee Clayton, player of the game, started being like my man over at New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson started hitting those clutch threes. Clayton reminds me a lot of Brunson, by the way. We're playing styles are almost the same to me. I love watching them both. I think Clayton is very electric. And, he comes in through in a big moment when he has to. He hit a free to tie it, and then a free in the fourth quarter to give him the lead. Bruins crowd, full of all football players, getting really loud, getting really hyped up. All the parents started getting really hyped up from crowds. It was going great. After in the first half of Bruins, didn't have as much to cheer for, but all of a sudden the Bruins, even if they were down by double digits, the crowd started getting hyped up more. Bruins basketball players fed off that energy. Shout out to the crowd as well for showing up in the second half at home. That's what you want to see. So the Bruins go off and win 22-3 on that run to win 49-43. Second time that they've won against them the exact score this season. They won against them same score over at Robinson back on December 17th by a score of 49-43 as well. So the Bruins were able to get back and win that game. And now we're moving on, take on Woodson in the Patriot District semifinals tomorrow over at South County, be a neutral site. We'll get into that in a few moments, but just some final few thoughts. This is really probably the most exciting game you have probably seen in boys basketball in a long time between Lake Braddock and Robinson. And for those of you guys who don't know, you guys, might be thinking, well, there's the old saying, you throw records away when it's some rivalry game. Let me tell you something, guys. There has been no rivalry before this year between Lake Braddock and Robinson in boys basketball. Now, traditionally speaking, Robinson is probably the main arch rival of Lake Braddock in most sports. Football, yes. I would say softball for sure. Baseball, different situation. It's more so West Springfield, not so much Robinson. Softball, Robinson, more so lately. Lacrosse, for sure. Especially boys lacrosse. Overall in a lot of sports, those two teams are always really competitive, especially girls basketball these last few years. For sure. But I would say in boys basketball, it's been kind of uneven between the two. Because the last several years, Robinson has never been good in boys basketball, really until this year. This is their first winning season since, I believe, the 2016-17 season. Way before Coach Hess was at Robinson. And maybe that was the last time you can maybe feel Lake Braddock and Robinson having an actual rivalry in boys basketball. There's been no rivalry. Lake Braddock has probably been dominating Robinson almost every single time that they've met up to this year. Maybe exclude the last couple of years where Bruins have really struggled finishing well below 500, but they're back this year. And you can finally say, this year, there finally is a true rivalry. It was great to see in boys basketball because you really don't get to see. You can't really say. Because either Robinson's been terrible. Lake Braddock, last couple of years, terrible. Even when both teams have been terrible the last couple of years. Is there more of a rivalry feel? I don't know, maybe. I can say most of the time, these last several years in boys basketball, Lake Braddock, Robinson, it's never been the level of any of the other sports after Lake Braddock Robinson rivalry has been compared to last night. That was probably the best game between those two teams in a while. So that was just something I want to point out. But I could probably say, with Robinson, they're heading in a good direction. Coach Hess is leading them really well. They got a very good future ahead of them. Lake Braddock is always a threat with Coach Mitras as their head coach. And despite the struggles the last couple of years, whether it's, go through a couple down years, but he's back up on his feet. It's not like it's some really prolonged stretch where we have to start saying, oh, Coach Mitras is on a hot seat. Last year, Bruins were decimated by injuries. They were pretty young as well. But this year, more experience grown. They have guys who can ball out. The guys are healthy at the right time. We had a couple guys in the depth that's been hurt. But again, shout out again to that depth, Khalid Cash. Was pretty big off a bench. He was off a bench quite significantly in terms of the time he played last night for the Bruins. He was doing it really well. I think he was playing in the spot of Brooke Antenna, who's kind of struggled as of late. Again, shout out to Khalid Cash as well. We saw Walker Mitchell getting a lot of minutes more so lately. So the two guys who've been injured from football, the two guys in the Lake Braddock secondary, Mitchell the quarterback, and then the free safety in Khalid Cash. They've been stepping up really good. I don't even think we saw much of Riley Peterson last night off a bench. Coach Beatrice has been putting a lot of faith in Mitchell and Cash. They've shown up a lot well over these last few weeks and the late stretch of this season. Shout outs to those two who are doing really well. Of course, Tye Clayton as well. Want to shout out congratulations to all the Bruins. I think if I would have to say, who's the Bruins MVP this season? It's Tye Clayton. It is his town now. He's going off every game. He always shows up. Very exciting player again. But I would say if there's a team MVP as well this season, it should be Clayton. He's the reason why the Bruins have been as good as they have been this year. I think they're actually much better than just being a game over 500 or any of the other several times that they've been near or at exactly 500 this season because of those close games. And probably really isn't his fault. It's maybe some of the, maybe some adjustments Bruins have had made and some other faults that have gone on in the early season part, or just not having the depth because Mitchell and Cash have been injured. But again, Bruins have done a really good job. So without further ado, let's get into this Woodson game, shall we? So we're playing Woodson tomorrow at South County, 1 seed versus the 4-seeded Bruins. Winner of this game, what our take on South County or West Potomac. The game will actually be happening at 5:30 tomorrow. We're also at South County. So good old double header action going on there. We'll get into the Lake Braddock Woodson game first. We'll also predict who's winning on the other side as well. So if I had to choose between who is going to win tomorrow's game, Lake Braddock or Woodson, unfortunately I have to say it, probably Woodson. So overall, again, the better team in the district. They've been dominant this year. Now, I'm not going to say that Woodson is going to completely blow the top off of Lake Braddock, like you saw in the January 10th matchup where it was a 74-48 Woodson final as they won. Back then, the Bruins didn't have Cash. They didn't have Mitchell again. Didn't have that depth. It was injured. Now they have that depth. We saw what they did. Bruins actually leading them at halftime. I think it should be an exciting battle. And maybe Woodson doesn't have as much momentum. Because let me tell you something, y'all. Woodson got exposed. They got exposed to South County and West Potomac. Now, give credit where it's due. South County's gotten healthy. Looks to be so. West Potomac has Chris Morrison back, one of their first team all-district guys last year that transferred to O'Connell. He came back to West Potomac. Never even struggled with him, with guys like Dom Sanchez, Michael Ofori on that team. They're a threat, but I think it's going to be really exciting for the Bruins tomorrow. Obviously, they have to contain Kaylin Chilton, Player of the Year in the district. Noah Limbago. Again, Chilton, D1 offer man. Has an offer from Power 5 School, West Virginia. Theo Burke. Colin Morgan, Will Taylor and company. Ryan Corallo as well. All those guys make up a great trio. Woodson is dangerous all around. Their reason why, but they almost went undefeated in district play this year, which is really hard to do as always, especially how competitive the district is. Even though Woodson has gotten exposed a little bit, Woodson's beatable. I wouldn't say it's going to be dominating. I still think Woodson are the favorites. I think they do have an edge overall in maybe the game that they bring to the Bruins. I think it is just overall a higher level than what the Bruins offer. But again, I wouldn't say that this game is going to be super out of range for the Bruins to win. If you guys know what I'm saying. I think is very well the Bruins, maybe they make an insane comeback like they did last night against Robinson. Maybe we see them make a 20-point comeback. I could see that in the cards. They could be leading them at halftime. Bruins are going to be coming in from the edge tomorrow. So Woodson might have to watch out. Of course, the Bruins are going to have to watch out too. It's going to be a very fun game to watch. Hopefully they can go to that one. We'll see. West Potomac, South County, game on the other side. Who should I go with, guys? You're tuning in right now. Leave your comments in the chat. Who do you think is going to win tomorrow? Lake, Braddock, Woodson? I want to know your guys' opinion. Or will it be South County and West Potomac? And I'll tell you guys who I think will win. It'll be in the South County West Potomac game. My opinion, it will be. I will say, I'm going to take a gamble on this. I'll say West Potomac. Will be West Potomac versus Woodson in the district finals, with Woodson going on to win. I think West Potomac could definitely hold their own against South County. I think that they could definitely, again, have that, like I was saying on the last episode a few days ago, some of that St. Louis Cardinals devil magic. And, you know, we all know West Potomac. They always go on a run in the postseason. Now, I think they're a higher seed this year. But again, they're not as strong as they are, you know, in a couple, you know, like last year when they won the region. But still this year, they could certainly threaten some teams with their play. I'm just going to go on a whim and just say that West Potomac will pull off the upset versus South County. I'll say that. Bold prediction, but I will go based off on it. West Potomac is dangerous to anybody. They have a great defense. They can keep up with good as anybody. With Chris Morrison back too, I think that gives West Potomac a lot of firepower. And depending on what South County brings, I don't know how. Now, I don't really know how healthy they are. But I know that, you know, they've been doing a little bit better their last few games. They beat Woodson. So we'll see. Now, I wonder if anyone for Woodson is hurt. If you guys know anything about Woodson, if they have any injured players or any of these injured guys tomorrow, please let me know in a comment below or send me this information over at my X page, over at Adam Hazara, or the show over at Adam Hazara Show on X2. You can also do that as well. So we're about 23 minutes into the show now. And so let's kind of get on to a little bit of Bruins girls hoops talk. So unfortunately, if you guys didn't know, the Lake Braddock girls varsity basketball season is officially over now. They lost in the Patriot District play-in round 44-48 to West Springfield on Monday night. So they're not going to be qualified for regional since they lost in the play-in. As West Springfield on a girls' side will advance to play. Or they played Woodson last night. I believe Woodson won that. I'm not sure. I'm looking at the girls' Patriot District bracket as of today, but I believe Woodson won that game since they're, in my opinion, the better team over West Springfield. But what we have is that it seems like the girls have lost, of course. But I will say this again about the girls. It was nice to see that they did go off in the game, ending the regular season, winning 3 in a row, taking down AC, Westfield, and Fairfax. Some very good wins there. They were able to get off, have some momentum going in postseason. And I said in this district playing round that they would probably play West Springfield close, and they did. They actually led West Springfield 30-29 after the third quarter. Now it wasn't close, but we'll take it. Take whatever you can, especially with how much the Bruins have struggled this year. Go take it. Fourth quarter, though, kind of started to get more into West Springfield. So the Bruins kind of fell off a little bit. West Springfield started really scoring well. No, Maya Williams, who's been like an absolute dagger off the bench this year. West Springfield calls him their spark plug. she went off and she carried West Springfield big time to win the game 44-38, the final. But really close game, say, with the Bruins now. Of course, West Springfield was favorites to win. They ended up winning. But, again, Bruins weren't shy of, upsetting West Springfield either. So, again, it was a really good game to watch. I'm wondering what will be the next steps for them next season. So, I think for Bruins next season, girls basketball, I don't think, personally, you're going to see a 18-loss season like you did this year. I think Coach Reed is expecting a lot more from her Bruins next year. I think she was still expecting a lot from him this year. And again, a lot of it had to do with Pacey Magnuson being hurt. I think Kitty Lastra, though she seemed healthy most of the games, she was apparently dealing with some injury things at some point. And, we keep bringing Pacey up, but that's because she's such a huge part of this Bruins team. She's a big presence there at forward. She's a stud in there. With Kajun, Lastra, Emily DePaul this year, who played her final game Monday. Congratulations to the Bruins class of 2025. Wina Barai, Elizabeth So as well. Congratulations to them. Big shout outs to them for what they've brought to our program the last 4 years. But in terms of the Bruins coming up next year, they'll still be very good. I think Coach Reed is expecting him to have more experience in belt. Of course, again, a lot of new starters this year. We had Mackenzie Berger starting. You had Katie Lastra starting as a full-time starter. You had Pacey Magnuson becoming a full-time starter this year. Emma Kajun is the only one who was like a quote-unquote return. Emily DePaul too, yeah. But like you had Kajun and Emily DePaul as returning starters, but the other three, still 6% of your lineup being all new starters. And next year, 4 of your 5 starters coming back. Lastra, Kajun, Berger, and Magnuson. Emily DePaul, you'll have to graduate. But again, I think there is some talent you could replace Fair. Now, I think, of course, the Bruins have Han Lee, who, of course, got a lot of starts for Bruins this year in the backcourt at the 1. She was, she's a good ball handler. It seems like at times, not much of a scoring threat. More known for like her rebounding and her defense on the perimeter. Now again, we'll see. Maybe she'll crack the starting lineup. So I guess in a way, you have the whole Bruins starting lineup coming back next year if you count Hannah Lee. But again, I think it'll be great next year. We'll have more experience under her belt. At that point, Kajun will already be a 4-year starter on a team. Lastra will be second-year starter. Magnuson, a second-year starter. And as well as Mackenzie Berger, the second-year starter. 4 and 5 will be seniors as well, except Maxon. Maxon will be a junior. Hannah Lee, if you count her, she'll be a junior as well. We'll see who else, of course, they have coming up through the ranks. Who they have going up, freshman JV. Whatever players come class 28. We've seen the Bruins have a lot of talented freshmen come out last few years. Not this year. We haven't had any freshmen on varsity this year. But May next season, Coach Reed always has those. She always knows how to build with depth. It seems depth struggles. It seems like, although Bruins didn't have a lot of depth this year, she will always have deal for a lot of her days. But coaching at Thomas Jefferson over in Alexandria area, but again, didn't really have as much depth this year. But next year, expected big things from them. And also, if you're wondering, will they have just as tough of a schedule if they did this year with all those seconders like Chantilly Edison and have to deal with Robinson, South County, Woodson. This year you had to deal with Broad Run from Loudon, who was really good. Oakton as well. Now, I think the Bruins will still have somewhat of a challenging schedule next year because, again, Coach Reed is expecting a lot from this Bruins. She is, she always has high praise in her team. She still went out and scheduled a really hard schedule for him this year. Even with no Sarah Pritz, no Lane Small, no Mackenzie Holiday, no great, none of those players from a good class 2024. It's a great class that they graduated after last year. And so she was still expecting him to be really strong. Of course, she expected to be growing pains, but she didn't predict, Pacey was going to get hurt. She Kitty Lastra was going to have injury problems. We're going to both of them fully healthy next year. Give Pacey a full season. Bruins probably win more games. They're probably not going to be, 8th place. You're not going to go on any 16-game losing streaks. There are some teams that are probably getting weaker next year. Now, I think if you're looking at next year in girls, I'd say the favorites probably win a district are South County because they bring back Layla Toll, co-district player of the year with Georgia Simonson, who was a D1 player. Layla Toll maybe be that as well. They have Natalia Wooten coming back, a first-team all-district guard who's great, one of the better guards in the state. They have one of the best backcourts. They have Peyton Baines-Trapp coming back. Inside, I know they lose Savannah Simmons, Jewel Lisenby as well. They do have, I believe, Makia Mason is her name. She's coming back at the free form. So South County's bringing back a lot of talent. I know Robinson, Madison Coutinho, Landon Augustin. Inside, they do, around the outside, I beg your pardon. They do lose, Georgia. They lose Jamie Bevins, I believe is her name. And then I think they also bring back their free Lanice Dixon. And they also have a very good young bench as well with players like Carly Prolks. And then there's Parker Loden, I think, is the other one. That's another good player that they've had who was a good freshman for them this year. Prolks, a sophomore. So, that Robinson team had some talent. Woodson, I think, will still be good with Coach Leto. They do lose Kameli. They lose Valley Swaminathan. They lose, Katie O'Connor. All three of them were all district this year. We still bring back Isabel Conklin, who was all district. They bring back Tazzy Alvarez, who was really good. Woodson will have some good depth coming back. Although they're, they will have some experience. West Springfield, kind of always a threat. I feel like, Alexandria City will be better too. They're an up-and-coming team. They showed a lot better signs this year. Gabby Barnes-Thomas was good. Corey Dickerson was good. And there's another player who I can't think of that was also really good for him. But I would say that definitely a lot of the district is probably going to be a bit weaker next year. Should give maybe Lake Braddock some chances. I feel like West Springfield will still not be as strong. They lose Kalina Raposa. They lose Isabel Hollingsworth. They lose Jalen Hillary. I know they bring back that, Maya Williams. They bring back Lilia Magor. They do bring back some talent. Overall, I think it's so a lot of players are a lot of talent top end wise is graduating in the district, and I think Lake Braddock will still have a really good chance. So again, expect a lot bigger things Lake Braddock next year, bearing the fact that everyone stays healthy. You don't have any injuries to any of the key players. Again, injuries happen. That's just part of the game. Everyone gets hurt. But again, just not bearing it, happening. The Bruins should do a lot better. Maybe at least be close to 500 if I'm guessing right. And of course, it depends on the schedule. Maybe it is a little bit more relaxed, but I still expect it to be pretty challenging to a point where the Bruins are still going to be able to grow off facing some good competition. That will prepare them for later on the season when it comes to playoff time. So that's my opinion. Overall, but again, congratulations to the Bruins on the season and the seniors as well. Congratulations on a late three-game winning streak. Congratulations to them breaking that 16-game losing streak at the end of the season. It eventually came around. He knew it was going to happen. Good job to them on their season. It didn't end the way they wanted it to. And, of course, best of luck to the Bruins and boys tomorrow night against Woodson. See if they can advance to the district finals, upset them. We'll talk about that game over on the weekend. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on so you don't miss another show. And finally, share it with a friend. All greatly appreciated. So, Sam Zera signing off on the Adam Zera Show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a great night.